Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ed Flynn, and I am the Council President, Boston City Council. In accordance with Chapter 20, Acts 2021, modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law, the City Council will be conducting this meeting virtually. Viewers can watch the council meeting live on YouTube by visiting boston.gov/citycouncil-tv. Roll call. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll to ascertain the presence of a quorum, please?
Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Baker.
Here.
Councilor Baker, present. Councilor Bog.
Present.
Councilor Bog, present. Councilor Braden.
Present.
Councilor Braden, present. Councilor Edwards.
Present.
Councilor Edwards, present. Councilor Fernandez Anderson. Councilor Flaherty.
Here.
Councilor Flaherty, present. Councilor Flynn.
Here.
Councilor Flynn, present. Councilor Lara.
Present.
Councilor Lara, present. Councilor Louisiane.
Present.
Councilor Louisiane, present. Councilor Mejia.
Here.
Councilor Mejia, present. Councilor Murphy.
Present.
Councilor Murphy, present. And Councilor Worrell.
Here.
Councilor Worrell, present. We have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I have been informed by the clerk that a quorum is present. Today, I'm honored to welcome Reverend Dr. Maurice Greaves to be our clergy today to offer the opening prayer. Reverend Dr. Greaves grew up in Mattapan section of Boston. As an infant, he was dedicated at 12th Baptist Church, and he was licensed to preach. And in 2010, he was ordained through the American Baptist denomination. He currently serves as an associate pastor at the Global Ministry Christian Church, as the leader of the Bible Institute and coordinator of the Mission Committee as well. In May 2008, he was ordained a Master of Divinity from Gordon Cornwell Seminary, and he has achieved his Doctor of Ministry degree as well. Dr. Greaves works as a licensed social worker for the Department of Children and Families for 14 years, where he served as a crisis intervention worker, preparing young adolescents, teens. He's a master facilitator for the Nurturing Fathers program, a mentor for numerous first-year male social workers. He is presently a probation officer at Suffolk Superior Court, and that's where I met Maurice as a line PO with me, and he was instrumental in helping people as part of their reentry program. I'm honored to hand it over to my good friend, Reverend Dr. Maurice Greaves. And Maurice, we're honored to have you today to give our opening prayer.
Thank you so much, my friend Eddie. Lord bless everybody. Please bow your heads as I share a word of prayer. Oh God, you are our strength. We put our trust in you. We pray that you pour the light of your wisdom, your understanding, and your discernment over our lives so that we could be usable for you for this hour, for the city of Boston, for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, for our nation and this world. We pray right now, oh Lord, that you would grant these men and women all they need to represent the various districts and people where they supervise. We pray right now, oh God, for courage. We pray, oh God, for balance. We pray for cooperative working together, oh Lord, for the families and for the young people of this city. We pray, oh God, for that you would grant them new ideas, new vision, and new ways of doing things to address old problems. We thank you right now in Jesus' name for all that you will do through them and that you will continue to do through them. We ask, oh God, that you would grant favor in how they address the challenges of a pandemic and how goods and services can be distributed out the city of Boston. And we pray this in Jesus' name for safety for each of their families, for their homes, for wherever they reside and whomever they come into contact with. We ask, oh God, that you would lead them with your hand of guidance to make sound decisions for this city. And we thank you right now for each of them, for however they serve. Oh God, we pray for a measure of grace upon them. We ask this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and any other faith tradition that is represented here today, Lord. We thank you for them and we praise you. And it's in the name of Jesus, I say thank you, and I am honored. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. We're honored to have you today. You can certainly stay with us on this meeting, but we certainly know your busy schedule. We just want to say thank you for joining us today, Pastor.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Maurice. At this time, if you are able, could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty,
and
justice.
justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, please let the record reflect that Councilor Arroyo is present.
And Councilor Fernandez Anderson is present as well.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Approval of minutes. Now on to the first order of business, which is the approval of minutes. Seeing and hearing no discussion on the matter, the chair moves to approve the minutes from the last meeting as presented. Since this is a virtual meeting, we need to take a roll call. Mr. Clerk, can you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Councilor Fernandez Anderson, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Lara.
Yes.
Councilor Lara, yes. Councilor Louis Jen.
Yes.
Councilor Louis Jen, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy, yes. And Councilor Worrell.
Yes.
Councilor Worrell, yes. Unanimous approval. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The minutes of the last meeting stand as approved. We'll go into communications from Her Honor the Mayor. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0222, please.
Docket number 0222, message in order for your approval. A home rule petition to the general court entitled Petition for a Special Law Relative to an Act to Real Estate Transfer Fees and Senior Property Tax Relief.
Thank you. This docket will be referred to the Committee on Government Operations. Mr. Clerk, will you please read docket 0223, please?
Docket number 0223, message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $250,000 in the form of a grant for the fiscal year 22 Municipal ADA Improvement Grant Program awarded by the Massachusetts Office on Disability to be administered by the Commission for Persons with Disabilities. The grant will fund the installation of a vertical lift to the third floor mezzanine.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Docket 0223 will be referred to the Committee on City Services, Innovation Technology. At this time, I would like to stop. Councilor Flaherty, you have your hand up.
Just on the next docket, Mr. President, I'd like to move for suspension and passage after you read it into the record.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0224, please.
Docket number 0224, message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $9,000 in the form of a grant for the BU Research Pilot Project awarded by Boston University School of Social Work to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund a research partnership with Boston University and the University of Massachusetts Lowell to examine Boston Police Department response to mental and behavioral health-related calls for service in the Boston Public Schools. The funds will cover staff overtime required to redact personal data from student records.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The chair now calls on Councilor Flaherty, the Chair of Public Safety, Criminal Justice, to speak on this docket. Councilor Flaherty, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the clerk has described, this $9,000 grant would fund a research partnership with Boston University and the University of Massachusetts Lowell to examine the Boston Police Department's response to mental and behavioral health-related calls for service within the Boston Public Schools. The funds will cover staff overtime that's required to redact personal data from student records. This type of work has been identified by our body as a priority as we continue to advocate for ways to improve our police department's response to mental and behavioral health-related calls, especially with our young people. So as chair of the Committee on Public Safety, I'm requesting that we suspend and pass docket 0224 so that these funds can be used expeditiously to get this program off the ground. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flaherty seeks suspension of the rules, passage of docket 0224. Mr. Clerk, can you please do a roll call vote?
Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Councilor Fernandez Anderson, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Lara.
Yes.
Councilor Lara, yes. Councilor Louis Jen.
Yes.
Councilor Louis Jen, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy, yes. And Councilor Worrell.
Yes.
Councilor Worrell, yes. Docket 0224 has unanimously passed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Reports of public officers and others. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0225 through 0238 together, please.
Docket number 0225, Councilor Flynn offered the following. Communication was received from City Council President Edward Flynn appointing Alex Jerntis as interim city clerk due to the retirement of City Clerk Maureen Feeney. There will be a formal open process to fill this position. Docket number 0226, Councilor Flynn offered the following. Communication was received from City Council President Flynn detailing the named chairs, vice chairs, and voting members of the standing committees of the Boston City Council. Docket number 0227, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Brandon Cardet Hernandez as a member of the Boston School Committee for a term expiring January 5th, 2026. Docket number 0228, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of B. Chris Sumner as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 2nd, 2023. Docket number 0229, Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Wayne Daly as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 6, 2025. Docket number 0230. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Amy McNamee as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 1st, 2024. Docket number 0231. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Joshua E. Dankoff as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 1st, 2024. Docket number 0232. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Ann Hernandez as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 6, 2025. Docket number 0233. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Tara Register as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 1st, 2024. Docket number 0234. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Carrie Mays as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 2nd, 2023. Docket number 0235. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Natalie Carruthers as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 2nd, 2023. Docket number 0236. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of E. Peter Alvarez as a member of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 6, 2025. Docket number 0237. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of E. Peter Alvarez as chairperson of the Civilian Review Board for a term expiring January 2nd, 2023. And docket number 0238. Notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Allison Cartwright as a member of the Internal Affairs Oversight Panel for a term expiring January 6, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Docket 0225 through 0238 will be placed on file. Matters recently heard for possible action. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0160.
Docket number 0160, message in order authorizing the city of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $5 million in the form of a grant, the grant payment awarded by the United States Department of the Treasury to be administered by the city's chief financial officer, collector treasurer. The grant payment is made from the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund in the Treasury of the United States, established by Section 9901 of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021.
The chair recognizes Councilor Bach, Chair of Boston's COVID-19 Recovery. Councilor Bach?
Thank you so much, Mr. President. And thank you to all the councilors who came to our hearing yesterday. I think we had nearly the whole council at our consideration of this docket. I do just want to draw councilors' attention to the fact that there's a committee report that's in your inbox that's been filed on this. So I hope folks will take a look at that. Just to say that this is a $5 million appropriation out of city ARPA funds filed by the administration to replenish the Small Business Relief Fund 2.0. And as we heard yesterday at the hearing from Chief Sigan Idowu and from Deputy Chief Midori Morikawa and Director of Small Business Natalia Urtube, we have had a lot of success in distributing funds through a number of different small business funds since spring 2020. At the start of the pandemic, the department's distributed almost $30 million in funds, and this SBRF 2.0 has so far given out $8 million in grants to 628 businesses. But since September 2021, its funds have been depleted. And so this $5 million would replenish the funds just to start allocating money to further businesses, many of whom have, like I said, already applied and have their applications waiting. And so we heard from the administration both about the breakdown of the grants that they've given so far, the fact that these funds would be prioritizing the three areas that have come under the city's vaccine mandate. So restaurants, arts and entertainment, and gyms and sports facilities. And it was good to hear from them about sort of all the different outreach aspects that the department's done, the applications being available in 11 languages, the kind of various ways in which we've tried to lower the threshold for relief, and also the department's work to try to make sure that the folks applying for these funds also know about their eligibility for and are pointed towards the state grants being funded through the American Rescue Plan, because the state's amount of funding is greater than ours. And so we want to make sure that our Boston-based businesses are getting as much support as possible. There were great questions from counselors focused on eligibility, accountability, making sure that these funds are being equitably distributed, making sure that we're sort of checking our own data, figuring out when we see discrepancies, what the source of that is. The department did report that they intend to have a public-facing dashboard up shortly. And then there are a number of questions that counselors asked on that accountability front that I think we expect more data back from the department about soon. One of the things that we also flagged in the conversation was that this committee is planning on having substantial further conversations about the bigger picture of ARP funds, and that we're not intending to sort of grant it all out in small chunks like this. However, the administration's made a case for this $5 million, and I think we all as counselors are hearing from small businesses every day who just need help and support and relief right now, yesterday. And so with that in mind, Mr. President, I am recommending today that this docket 0160 ought to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. Does anyone else, would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Please raise your hand. Thank you, Councilor Bach. The chair of the Committee on Boston's COVID-19 Recovery seeks acceptance of the committee report and passage of docket 0160. Mr. Clerk, can you please do a roll call vote?
Docket number 0160. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Councilor Fernandez Anderson, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Lara.
Yes.
Councilor Lara, yes. Councilor Louis Jen.
Yes.
Councilor Louis Jen, yes. Councilor Mejia.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy, yes. And Councilor Worrell.
Yes.
Councilor Worrell, yes. Docket number 0160 receive unanimous approval.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Okay.
Moving on to motions, orders, resolutions. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0239, please.
Docket number 0239, Councilors Mejia and Fernandez Anderson offer the following: an ordinance creating a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans.
The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia.
Thank you, Mr. President. And before we go on, I'd like to move to substitute the language to reflect some changes that were made to the ordinance.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia moves to substitute language for docket 0239. The new draft with changes should be in everyone's inbox.
Thank you.
Seeing and hearing no objections, docket 0239 is now in a new draft with the changed language. The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, you have the floor.
Thank you. And I would also like to suspend the rules and add Councilor Worrell as an original co-sponsor.
Councilor Mejia seeks suspension of Rule 12 and adds Councilor Worrell as the third original co-sponsor. Seeing and hearing no objections, Councilor Worrell is added as a third co-sponsor. Councilor Mejia, you may continue.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. President. For almost 400 years, the history of Black Boston has been marked by segregation and injustice. We have witnessed segregation, redlining in Boston resulted in predominantly Black neighborhoods like Roxbury being listed as quote unquote undesirable, greatly driving down home values and contributing to a major wealth gap between Black families and white families in Boston. We have also witnessed injustice. It is a statistic that is too often repeated in regards to the average net worth of a Black family is just $8 in our city. And we cannot forget the injustice of slavery. From the Massachusetts constitutional end of slavery in 1780 to 1865, the city of Boston and its residents continue to benefit and remain complicit in supporting and financing systemic relationships to institutionalized system of slavery. We have witnessed segregation and injustice, but let's be clear, the solution to injustice is justice. And the solution to segregation is community coming together as one to fight towards a common goal. That is why we are filing this ordinance to create a commission to study and develop reparations proposal for African Americans. It should not be lost on us that we're filing this shortly after the passing of Senator Bill Owens, who pioneered reparations efforts way back in the 1980s. We have an obligation to pick up where he left off. We are calling for this reparations commission today because of history of segregation and injustice in Boston. And the way we have gotten here by addressing this is by centering the community and letting them lead the change. The ordinance has been co-authored by Yvette Modestine, founder and director of Encuentro Diaspora Afro, and Dr. Jamadari Kamara, who is the chair of Africa Studies Department at UMass Boston. By stepping back and letting the community lead, we're not just designing an ordinance centered around reparative justice, we are creating a process centered around reparations justice. Because if we are only focusing on the what and not the how, we will have failed our mission before we even started. The ordinance will establish a 15-member commission with the goal of defining reparations as it relates to the reality of the Boston community, collecting data and document historical harms and inequities experienced by African Americans in Boston, and developing a report with specific reparations proposals to address historic and inequities resulting from structural and policies which have produced harm. I also want to extend my appreciation to Tanisha Sullivan, the president of the NAACP, for leading us on this issue, in addition to advocates from King Boston and the New Democracy Coalition. This is a community effort. And even if we have our disagreements, we must remind ourselves that this work is so much bigger than all of us. Before I turn it over to our co-sponsors, which they're not going to be speaking because this is not going to be their maiden speech, I just want to end with a quote from Yvette, one of the co-authors of this ordinance. She said, "This is about Black liberation, honoring those whose shoulders we stand on and planning for those who will come after us. The self-determination of the Black Boston community to define for ourselves what reparative justice looks like is crucial. But this is just the beginning. It's about mind, it's about feet, it's about heart. I look forward to the work ahead. Thank you."
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Councilor Flaherty?
Yes, just through the chair to, through the chair to the maker. I just want to go through the whereas. It says, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 5 representatives from organizations, and then there are 10 that will come from a pool that's represented by the, or in commission consultation with the mayor's office and the council, for a total of 15 members. And then it says that each member will be paid $100 an hour, not to exceed $50,000 per year. Can we just, so is that, so all 15 members conceivably could be being paid $50,000 a year to serve on this commission? Is that my understanding?
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Mejia, a question from Councilor Flaherty relating to the committee and payment to the committee members. Would you have any additional information that you would like to pass along to the body?
So, Councilor Flaherty, I think this is something that we might potentially workshop during the working session and flush things out. The whole idea is to ensure that those who are participating in the process are being compensated, but I think that your point is well taken. And when we get into the working session, we can hash it out some further.
Very good. And then it said the commission from start to finish. So there's no sort of defined start and finish date of the commission's role. And then it says that they would be designated municipal employees. Would that then through the chair to the maker again, would that mean that they would be part of sort of the city of Boston's pension system as well?
Well, I'm thinking of very similar to the Civilian Review Board makeup, Councilor Flaherty. So, you know, again, I think this is an opportunity for us during the working session to hash these things out.
Thank you,
Mr.
Thank you, Council Flaherty. Thank you, Council Mejia. Would anyone else like to speak on this? I don't see anyone else that wishes to speak. Would anyone else like to add their name? You can do that by raising your yellow hand, or if you just raise your hand. Mr. Quirk, please add Councilor Braden. Please add Councilor Lejeune. Please add Councilor Lara. Please add Councilor Arroyo. Please add Councilor Bach. Please add the chair. Docket 0239 will be referred to the Committee on Government Operations. Mr. Quirk, please read docket 0240.
Docket number 0240, Councilor Mejia offered the following: an ordinance amending City of Boston Code, Chapter 15, Section 11, creating a commission on Black men and boys.
Councilor Mejia, you are recognized. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an amendment to the ordinance we passed last year establishing a commission on Black men and boys. One of the biggest issues in ensuring that the commission is successful and has the tools to be able to do their work is providing staffing and funding. In order to best do that, we need to formally codify an executive director position who can serve as an assistant to the commission and to ensure that they're able to and provided with any and all materials and staffing. This is a small amendment, so we're hoping that, that the review process will be short so that we can pass this and get to the work of standing up for our Black men and boys here in the city of Boston. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Mejia. Would anyone else like to speak on this? If you want to raise your hand or raise your yellow hand. Would anyone else like to add their name to this? If you want to raise your hand or raise your yellow hand. Councilor Arroyo. Please add Councilor Flaherty. Please add Councilor Worrell. Please add Councilor Lejeune. Please add Councilor Murphy. Please add Councilor Braden. Please add Councilor Baker. Please add the chair. Please add Councilor Lara. Please add Councilor Bach. Please add Councilor Fernandez Anderson. Docket 0240 will be referred to the Committee on Government Operations. Mr. Quirk, please read docket 0246, please.
0241.
Yes, please read 0241.
Docket number 0241, Councilor Bach offered the following: order for a hearing regarding a supplemental sidewalk clearance program during snowstorms in Boston.
The chair recognizes Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. And Mr. President, if I may add Councilor Worrell as the original co-sponsor.
Yes, Council Worrell is added.
Great, thank you so much. And I know he won't be speaking today, but like many of the district councilors, feels passionately about this issue, and at-large councilors. So I am reintroducing this legislation because we need to take the next step towards pedestrian equity in snow clearing in the city of Boston. I'm sorry, I think I'm getting some feedback. We've seen this winter, and most recently with the storm on the weekend, was that a big snowstorm can trap our folks with disabilities, our elders, anybody who needs that passable 42-inch lane that we're supposed to have with the ADA. It can trap folks in their houses for multiple days, for a week. And precisely because having people be immobilized in that way is not livable, that's the reason that we have our streets program, both to get emergency vehicles around and then in the days after the storm to get people around. But I think as a city that prioritizes and is proud of the fact that a lot of our people move around on foot, on public transit, on bicycles, that we have to have a snow clearance program that takes that into account. And it's something that has been done in other cities, that is a regular piece of city services in many cities across Canada. In Rochester, New York, is something that other cities like Syracuse, who came and joined us for our last hearing on this matter, have started to do at the scale of 100, instead of a full 800 miles like what Rochester does, identifying a smaller area and trying to clear that. But I was very pleased to introduce this last year, and really grateful to Public Works for working with us on what we could do on a short time scale. And so, I think the Bobcats that have been out clearing the sidewalks, the crosswalks, ramps across the city in the aftermath of this huge storm, and also in the aftermath of the storm in January 8th, been a big step forward for the city. But we know there's a difference between throwing some resources at it and trying to hit hotspots, which is what we're currently doing, and really reimagining our systems such that we're prioritizing people and all the ways that they get around the city. And I just think that you only have to be a counselor for one day during a snowstorm to realize that the spot check, whack-a-mole approach to this doesn't work. And we wouldn't settle for it as a solution on roads. And I don't think we should be settling for it as a solution on sidewalks. So one of the things that I have stressed in my past advocacy on this is that it is not about saying that Public Works is not doing an amazing job, because they are, and also that they're doing an amazing job with the resources that they have. I think this is an area that the council needs to be talking about with the administration as we go into budget for the coming year, precisely because to really do something that brings that equity to our snow clearance, we need more staff, more funding, different apparatus, and a real coordinated strategy, which we haven't had on this piece of the puzzle to date. So I just, it's a refile, Mr. President, but something where I was pleased we were able to make some progress last year, but I think that the situation is calling out for us to make a more systemic step forward in the year to come. And I am looking forward to seeing what we can learn from the informal pilot of the Bobcats. I think that by the end of this winter, we're going to know a lot more about how much a given piece of equipment can cover and what would be feasible. But I just don't think that America's walking city can have the sort of happenstantial approach to sidewalk snow clearance that we have. And we know that storms are going to keep coming. And so we need to build out the system. So very excited about working on this. Grateful to Councilor Worrell for partnering and all the councilors. I know that for all of us, this was the work of the last weekend, was responding to constituents, and we continue to see real need as we get into whatever this is, day 4, day 5 after the storm, which is part of the reason I think here that we need a bigger systemic fix. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? If you do, please raise your hand. The chair recognizes Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Councilor Bach, thank you very much for continuing to put this out here. In the last 40 or 50 years, the city and also most municipal governments have had the train of thought, which would be to outsource all of our labor that we do. And that's what we've seen happen over the last 50 years from our trash collections and maybe in the printing department department. I know it firsthand. New York City actually has 10,000 day laborers that they have access to. I believe it's something like $10 an hour that they bring out and put to work during this situation. And to be able to get on those rolls, it's not cumbersome. You don't have to come in and do 2 days worth of paperwork first. But we, I think, with this new council should be thinking of, and especially with opera money coming in, thinking of how we are building infrastructure to bring jobs that we control back into the city, our laborers, our masons, carpenters, things like that, so we can do our own work. To just simply land up a bench on a sidewalk, I think it costs us somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000. That's something we should be doing in-house. So just thank you again, Kenzie, and I see your next filing. I very much the same sort of train of thought on that one too. So thank you, Councilor Bach, and sign me on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Would anyone else like to speak on this? The chair recognizes Councilor Braden, please. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Councillor Bach for once again bringing this very important issue forward. I really feel, when I'm out and about in the neighbourhood, the crosswalks are a huge issue. Our bus shelters are inaccessible because there's mounds of snow piled up. So really addressing this issue, as more and more of our residents, especially in this district where we've a very low car ownership, a lot of our residents rely on being pedestrian and bicycle safety. These are really important issues. So I applaud Councillor Bach for bringing this forward again, and I do hope that with a concentrated effort that we can put more resources into snow clearance and help alleviate the stresses of living in Boston in the winter, especially when we have big storms like we had this last weekend. So thank you, and please add my name.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. Would anyone else like to speak in this matter? Councilor Mejia, the floor is yours.
Yes, I just wanted to thank the maker for filing this hearing order, and I also just want to uplift a few things. I know that Councilor Lara has been on the front lines working and pushing on this issue, specifically around some of the inequities that exist across the city in terms of just the way things happen. So I think there's an opportunity for us to dive a little bit deeper in terms of how certain neighborhoods are getting a little bit more attention than others in regards to just the clearing the snow period. So I think that there's a lot of conversations that we could be having. And then I'm also just curious about, the decisions that are being made in terms of how the work is getting distributed. So I just want to give a shout out to Councilor Lara for her hard work and uplifting in her first week or so in this job and handling the storms the way that she did for her residents in Jamaica Plain and other areas that are often unseen. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. I will speak very briefly. I want to say thank you to our colleagues on the council. During the snowstorm, everybody was engaged, district councilors, at-large councilors, working closely with the city administration on clearing snow, making sure that our sidewalks are accessible, especially for our seniors, persons with disabilities. So I want to acknowledge our city councilors for tremendous work they've done. I also know that Councilor Worrell had a program of recruiting volunteers to help our seniors, as did Councilor Lara, as did Councilor Edwards, I believe, and my state representative in South Boston, David Beal, as well. So I just want to acknowledge those folks. Let me stop there. Councilor Arroyo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The highlighting of people doing work has been nice to see. I also just want to shout out that Councilor Jackson has formally pushed on this issue. And I think what his look to do, and I would love to see if there's a way for us to do it in this, there's a sort of a twofold issue I see with snow removal, which is we have these public spaces, sort of sidewalks, corners, bus stops, all of those things that still need a lot of work in how the city goes about dealing with that. But I know one of the things that was really difficult for my office was the calls from seniors who were looking for ways to receive direct assistance from the city when it came to shoveling. And I don't know if it's worth exploring whether or not we're able to create some kind of fund to pay out to seniors so that they can actually hire people to shovel, or whether or not we can create a program to hire people out to shovel in those ways so that we don't put that burden on seniors seeking help to the point where they're calling a city councilor to help them out of their homes. I think it's hard enough to age in the city of Boston with the northern climates and the ways in which the prices of everything here are so much more expensive. When the winter hits and people are literally being trapped in their homes, I think it would be interesting to see what kind of program we can set up as a city to directly deal with seniors specifically. Again, not with public ways and public sidewalks, but specifically with private homes and folks who have a need for that kind of assistance. So thank you to Councillor Bach for putting this forward, and Councillor Well, who's also an original sponsor on this, and to Councillor Laura and Councillor Mejia and everybody else who's done such great work around snow removal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Anyone else like to speak on this? Councilor Bach?
Councillor Flynn, if I can just briefly add in relation to what Councillor Arroyo was just saying, definitely, I think what we're contemplating here is a program where the city would support the clearance also of the sidewalks that private property owners are currently responsible for. That's what happens in Rochester, is that if there's a storm of more than 4 inches, the city takes over clearing the sidewalks the same it does the roads. And so, I mean, obviously, even the sidewalk in front of your private home is public, but we, by city ordinance, obviously require private property owners to clear those. And I think that, there's long been a conversation about personal responsibility and the fact that we would like everybody to take care of their sidewalks. And I think that's all well and good, but I think we all know that we don't ask private property owners to plow the street in front of their house because we know that it would not be reliable enough to actually get done, and people need it done. The people who need to get around are really the same things going for the sidewalk. So I just want to stress in relation to Councillor Arroyo's point that I think anything that we do on this on the city side would hopefully have the effect of also relieving seniors who are property owners when you have those heavy storms. So I think there's definitely a convergence of aims here. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia.
Yes, so I just want to add 2 more things to the conversation. And one is on behalf of some of our folks who haven't given their maiden speech. So I just want to put into the record that we also want to ensure that we're talking about handicap accessibility and mobility around this conversation. And I just want to offer that Councilor Arroyo is correct. During the storm, we yielded a lot of calls from elders, and what we decided to do is plug them into organizations. And we are going to be creating a workforce development initiative now to help support young people so that they can provide community service, but also support our elders during these snow removal emergency situations. And so we, through our efforts this weekend, we have identified ways to be able to address the issue specifically in the here and now. I know that sometimes government can be a little bit slow in the way that it moves, but we're going to be reaching out to some partners and have already identified a group of young people. So if and when we have this hearing, we'd love to invite some of the young people who are going to be leaning in to create this workforce development initiative, because we piloted this weekend just because we were responding to the need.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Councilor Braden, you have your hand up?
No, Councillor, no, President, Mr. President, I forgot to take my hand down again.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you, Councilor Braden. No one else would like to speak. Would anyone else like to sign on? Please raise your hand. Councilor Mejia, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Arroyo, Councilor Baker, Councilor Lara, Councilor Lujan, Councilor Fernandez Anderson, the chair. Mr. Clerk, this docket will be referred to the Committee on City Services, Innovation, Technology. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0243, please. 0242, please.
Docket number 0242, Councilor Bach offered the following. Order for a hearing regarding recycling, compost, and waste services in the city of Boston.
The chair recognizes Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, can I please request suspension of Rule 12 and add Councilor Braden and Councilor Flaherty as original co-sponsors on this item?
Yes, Councilor Bach seeks suspension of Rule 12 to add Councilors Braden and Councilor Flaherty
Yes.
as original co-sponsors. Seeing and hearing no objection, those councilors are added. Thank you, Councilor Bach. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilor Flynn. And this is another city services thing and a sort of core municipal function, which is all the different ways that we deal with waste in the city of Boston. And in particular, thinking about how we deal with all the waste that isn't just simple trash. I think, the real intention of this hearing order is one, information. I think often residents in the city of Boston don't know about all the ways that we have of disposing of things like e-waste or the existing compost program, Project Oscar, or things about how single stream recycling works. So certainly we want to create a platform for kind of informing people about the city's suite of programs right now and making sure that councilors are up to speed on those. But this is another space where, exactly as Councilor Baker said, there's a real opportunity and a pressing need, and in this case, a pressing environmental need to expand the services that the city offers, and to think about how we do that internally in the city, how we build capacity, have good public jobs, and really composting is something that we've sort of been at the edges of thinking about a serious curbside composting program for a while as a city. It's something that many other cities in the U.S., thinking of Seattle, San Francisco, have and have had robustly for a while now that we in Boston have not. And it's definitely a kind of another sort of systems need and a set of job opportunities. But then also, I think with the e-waste, so thinking about how people dispose of batteries, how people dispose of all the electronics that are more and more part of our life, that have these rare earth metals that are the reason for all kinds of mining activity all over the world. Like, I think, we just have to think about what are the cutting edge strategies for getting these things recycled most effectively and well. And then, as we know, and it's something that Councilor O'Malley has brought up repeatedly, recycling and the economics of recycling have really shifted over the last few years, such that what used to make the city money now costs the city money. There are some places in the country that are sort of experimenting with other approaches in order to reverse that dynamic. There's also questions, again, about at the point at which we're paying other people to do a lot of processing instead of them paying us for the privilege. It doesn't make sense to bring some more of that in-house. So this is really designed to be a little bit of a catch-all hearing to talk with Public Works. It's the same story. Our Public Works staff do an unbelievable job with waste and handling all these different streams, and just think about how the council can support them and support the city in building out more robust systems for the kind of green waste management that we really need in the contemporary city. So looking forward to holding a hearing, and thank you, Mr. President, and to my co-sponsors, Councilors Braden and Flaherty.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. Anyone else like to speak on this? The chair recognizes Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Mr. President, if I may, just as a point of order, my co-sponsors, Councilors Braden and Flaherty, I think if there was an opportunity for them to speak before the open floor, that would be appreciated.
Yes. Yeah, that was my mistake. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the maker for including me in this as a co-sponsor. This conversation is timely for us to review, very timely for us to review the city's recycling, compost and waste services, as well as ways to increase public awareness. Our office also conducted a survey last year, distributed to members of and leaders within our Orthodox Jewish community here in Brighton, with many community members expressing frustration that they could not drop off their waste on the designated Saturdays that when they observe the Sabbath. So as a result, we partnered with our local public works yard to host alternative hazardous waste drop-off pop-up for members of the Orthodox community, ensuring that our services are increasingly culturally competent and accessible to all of our community members. This is an opportunity that we offer twice a year in partnership with our Public Works Department, and it really helps get those recyclables that folks want to have disposed of responsibly, to have them an opportunity to recycle at a time that's culturally appropriate. I also look forward to discussing the status of expanding the Project Oscar and the city's 24-hour community compost pilot program. We have only one location here in Alston Brighton at the Faneuil Gardens BHA development, and we look forward to increasing convenient access to this service. And also with regard to the cost of recycling, it did go from being a money maker to being a cost, to actually making a cost to recycle. But I just heard a news story on the radio this past few weeks about a city in New Hampshire that's actually generating income from their recycling program. Obviously, it's a much smaller municipality, but I think we need to look at ways to make our recycling program more effective and to not be such a drain on our city resources. So I really look forward to this conversation, and thank you to the maker.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. The chair recognizes Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flaherty, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I just want to commend the leadership of our colleague, Councilor Bach, and thank you for including me in recognizing my efforts on the council during the single stream recycling. Myself and Councilor Ross, on behalf of the council, led those efforts, as well as the distribution of those big blue recycling bins that were distributed across the city. And the previous speaker, Councilor Braden, nailed it with respect to the recycling cost. Our efforts back then to do the single stream recycling was to reduce the cost of the trash collection. And then we started a partnership working with folks that wanted to do the compost. And we thought it would sort of be like a three-legged part of the stool. You put your household trash in, you put your recyclables, and then you have a compost option. And as she just referenced, the recycling costs now are arguably outpacing the trash cost, with no one really knowing what to do or where to put it, whether you ship it out, you barge it out, you truck it out. But ultimately, those costs are increasing, and we continue to see the city's trash collection costs go through the roof. And most folks obviously enjoy the 1 day a week. There are some communities, the ones that are more densely populated with very little space, have or enjoyed at 1.2 day a week collections. But in any event, keeping our eye on these costs, trying to be creative in identifying ways to eliminate the cost, but also sort of a distribution, I guess, of our waste. And clearly the chair and lead sponsor here has her eye on the ball, and look forward to partnering with her to find these creative solutions to drive those costs down, but to give folks creative options to do their part to make our world a better and much cleaner place. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. The chair recognizes Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the maker, Councilor Bach, for keeping an eye on this, like Councilor Flynn said. Again, this can be looked at and viewed as a way for us to build infrastructure, especially at this time, especially where there's ARPA money out there with something like, with an investment, a true investment, whether if it's 10, 15, $20 million, if we were to build an organics digester and to be able to divert all your organics waste out of that stream it would be a cost savings for the city. It would do wonders for the environment, and we would also be able to provide jobs. That's one thing I think we should be looking at it as a body. Also, if we need real conversations around recycling, we went to the single stream where we used to, separate out the cardboard from the glass, from the plastic. I think we're going to have to get back to something more designated like that, where we're more separating out, because it's in that mixing of everything that the recycling becomes contaminated. Then we're unable to sell it. Not to mention that the places that were buying all our recycling, China or India, are now no longer buying any of that. So all the things that we've heard about recycling being, we never really made that much money with it, but it was at least cost neutral. Now that cost is being added on top of our waste contract. I think last year, not sure, but just throwing it out there, we spend about $250 million on our contracts for tipping costs for our trash and our recycling. So if we're able to build any infrastructure with money that's available to us and put people to work and help our bottom line numbers and also put people to work, I think this is a win. So again, Councilor Bach, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and please sign my name. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Anyone else like to speak on this matter? I will speak briefly. I just want to echo some comments Councilor Baker has made. It's also critical to make sure that we educate residents on how to take out trash, how to take out recycling. I've spent a lot of time and effort on this in the South End and in Chinatown as well, but it's not as simple as just taking your trash out. We do have to work with residents. We have to work with neighborhood organizations, small businesses, restaurants, to really educate people, and including providing this information in other languages as well. But the public awareness campaign is also a critical part of this. And I hope we can add that aspect as well during the hearing. So thank you, Councilor Bach. If anyone else would like to add their name, please raise your hand. Please add Councilor Mejia. Please add Councilor Arroyo. Please add Councilor Worrell. Please add the chair. Please add Councilor Murphy. Please add Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson. Please add Councilor Lejeune. Please add Councilor Lara. Docket 0242 will be referred to the Committee on City Services, Innovation, Technology. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0243, please.
Docket number 0243, Councilor Bach offered the following. Order for a hearing regarding gasoline-powered lawn and garden equipment.
Councilor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. This hearing order is about gas-powered garden and lawn equipment. It's a very large contributor to non-traffic gasoline emissions in the city, and also contribute to high levels of localized emissions that are toxic, carcinogenic, and ozone forming. So the use of these gas-powered lawn and garden equipment pieces, including leaf blowers, can pose serious health risks to those frequently exposed, including like landscapers and ground maintenance staff, as well as residents who are in close proximity to areas where they're frequently used. And so when you sort of combine those immediate health impacts with also the climate impacts and then the noise pollution aspect of it, we think this is something that we should be looking at and thinking about ways to regulate in the city, not least because alternatives to gasoline-powered two-stroke lawn and garden equipment items are readily available, including battery-operated leaf blowers, which are quieter and emission-free at the source. This is something that Cambridge and Lexington, some nearby municipalities have already regulated, promoting the transition to these safer, less carbon emitting, less noisy alternatives. And so, I wanted to open this discussion. This is a hearing order, not an ordinance, because I think that, I know that these are used throughout the city, and it's definitely something where we want to bring all the stakeholders in. But we think that, as we look in the city for ways to be greener, this is an important contributor to our carbon emissions, and we'd like to think about ways to transition to more of the clean energy, battery powered alternatives. So I'm looking forward to discussing with the council. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. Would any other councilors like to speak on this matter? Would any other councilors like to add their name? Please add Councilor Braden. Please add Councilor Flaherty. Please add Councilor Mejia. Please add Councilor Arroyo. Please add Councilor Rell. Please add the chair. Please add Councilor Fernandez Anderson. Please add Councilor Lejeune. Docket 0243 will be referred to the Committee on Environmental Justice, Resiliency, and Parks. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0244, please.
Docket number 0244, Councilors Braden and Bach offer the following. Order for a hearing to review affirmative marketing practices for re-releasing existing affordable rental units generated by the inclusionary development policy.
The chair recognizes Councilor Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move to suspend Rule 12 and add Councillor Louisiane as a third original co-sponsor to this docket, please.
Councilor Braden seeks suspension of the rules and adds Councilor Louisiane as the third original co-sponsor, saying and hearing no objection, Councilor Louisiane is added as the third co-sponsor. Councilor Braden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since its inception in the year 2000, the inclusionary development policy has generated approximately 5,500 income restricted units, of which 3,200 were both on-site and off-site units created by developers, and roughly 2,500 of these are rental units. These income restricted rental units generated by the IDP program provide support for moderate and middle income households being priced out of the Boston real estate market. When a development subject to IDP completes construction, including residential rental developments, an affirmative marketing plan is put in place and a lottery is conducted through the Office of Fair Housing to determine initial tenants. The BPDA maintains a spreadsheet on its website listing over 135 existing developments with affordable rental units through IDP, with lotteries conducted for initial tenants. When a unit becomes vacant, the property owner goes down the lottery order as a wait list. To join the wait list of an existing development participating in the IDP program, prospective tenants must contact each individual property owner or their listing agent to inquire about vacancies, upcoming availability, or waitlist procedures before even initiating an income certification process. This process of releasing existing IDP rental units in the city's portfolio places burdens on prospective tenants to contact each development, many of whom may have differing practices for maintaining their waiting lists. At times, people have been given 24 hours from notification to confirm if they are able to submit an application for an available unit. There is no centralized mechanism to assess how many prospective tenants are on a wait list for individual developments subject to the IDP program across the city, or how long the average wait is by any AMI affordability level or unit size. In future, I would like to see a schedule of all IDP rental units by AMI and turnover and vacancy rates broken down by AMI level. In Brighton, multiple IDP units at the St. Gabriel's development set at 150% of the area median income have remained vacant and continuously marketed for months. I look forward to continuing the conversation and working to ensure affirmative marketing principles are not only in practice for the initial lease up of new developments, but for the releasing of existing units to be accessible, comprehensive, efficient, and without barriers to participation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? The chair recognizes Councilor Bach.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I just want to thank Councilor Braden for including me in this and her advocacy on this, and just say, I think that we always want to be thinking about folks who are looking for housing are in, a very difficult situation. And I think the more difficult we make it to get over those hurdles and kind of have to look at a million places, the harder it is just in terms of the tax on people's mental energy and time. And I think as Councilor Braden has elucidated, we still don't have the kind of centralization of these opportunities that we'd really like to see. I think that, the BPDA and the DND, now Mayor's Office of Housing folks, have done a lot to improve MetroList and make it more searchable. And there's a lot of great people who are supporting this behind the scenes. But at the same time, I still think that a family's experience, especially for finding these relisted units that aren't the ones that are listed right at the start, can often be quite arduous. And so thinking about, as a council, we want to see every one of these units occupied with the lowest vacancy, both in the initial lease up and later lease up as possible, because this is such a precious valued resource for everyone in the city. And then another thing that I'm interested in exploring in this hearing is we've heard a little bit about the challenges of when folks, when something positive, they get a promotion and they start to make slightly more than the IDP limit. We have in my district a resident who actually came out of homelessness, out of shelter, got a voucher, got an IDP unit, then got a job, has earned more and more, and now is in a strange situation where if she earns a little bit more, suddenly her rent in this market building jumps up by $3,000, which is completely untenable for her family. So making sure that we as a city don't set up these cliff effects in our own programs. This is something that we criticize federal programs for when they have those cliff effects. So just looking forward to lifting the lid and talking about program improvements here, recognizing there's a lot of great people again at the city who are working on this. So thank you, Councilor Braden, for letting me co-sponsor.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? I do see Councilor Mejia's hand up. Councilor Mejia, would you like to speak on this matter?
Just add my name as a sponsor. I just want to make sure that I get called on the next.
Thank you. Please add Councilor Mejia's name. Would anyone else like to add their name? Please add Councilor Murphy. Please add Councilor Baker, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Arroyo, Councilor Rell, Councilor Lara, Councilor Fernandez Anderson. We got Councilor Mejia and the chair as well. Docket 0244 will be referred to the Committee on Housing and Community Development. And Councilor Mejia, the chair recognizes Councilor Mejia.
Yes, thank you, President Flynn. I just actually am asking for reconsideration of docket 0240.
Councilor Mejia moves for reconsideration docket 0240 and asks that we suspend the rules.
Yes, and pass.
Suspend the rules and pass.
Yeah, this is just a text amendment. We have, this is at the request of the administration, and we're just trying to codify an administrative technical language here. So we're hoping that we can, it's a simple fix and a change. So just hoping that we can reconsider it.
I second that motion to reconsider.
I think we're out of order here.
Yeah.
I mean, in Robert's rules, I think we're out of order. I think we're already, sorry, Mr. President, can I speak on this for a bit?
The chair recognizes Councilor Baker.
I think we're out of order here. I don't think it's going to hurt us to vote on that next week. Simple changes, we don't know what simple changes are. I don't think there should be a problem with leaving this exactly the way we did it and vote on it next week.
Thank you, Councilor Baker.
Just an opinion.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Mr. Clerk,
Yes.
are you able to weigh in whether we should do a roll call vote or whether this should be held off for next week?
Well, because the meeting is still active and the docket is still in play, it can be reconsidered. A motion can be made to be reconsidered, and it was seconded. So, Councilor Baker, because we're still in the meeting, we can actually do this.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
Mr. President, before you call the vote, can you take further comment?
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Bach. We'll do it briefly. Go ahead, Councilor Bach. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I would just say briefly, I mean, I very much expect to support this change, but I would just say that I think it is a material change in the sense that it involves adding paid staff. So to me, this wouldn't, I mean, because obviously that then has city budget implications, et cetera. It's not quite at the level of a technical change, like, oh, we put a comma in the wrong place. So my inclination would just be to want communication from the administration about it, which I don't think we've received. And so I would tend in Councilor Baker's direction of thinking that, well, this is something that we could do speedily. We shouldn't necessarily do it so speedily as to suspend and pass. So I just would say, I think I'm going to be voting against the reconsideration motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. Mr. Clerk, can we take a roll call vote, please?
Mr. President, it's Council Flaherty here. I have my hand raised. I'm just curious. I just want to have the docket number and what is the technical change? Can we have the verbiage?
It's docket 0240. Councilor Mejia, would you respond to Councilor Flaherty's question, please?
President Flynn, I'm having technical difficulties. I'm in 2 screens right now. My internet is down. Give me a quick second. But we did submit this. The changes that we've made are already submitted. We submitted it through the council. So if you can look through your packet, Councilor Flaherty, the details are there. But just give me a second because I'm operating 2 screens here and my internet is a bit.
Mr. Clerk, could we take a 5-minute recess and
Yes.
give everybody an opportunity to take a look at it?
Yep.
And Carrie, if my internet goes down again, I'm going to be in the waiting room. So if you could look out for me so you can let me back in, please.
On standby, no problem.
We'll be in a brief recess for 5 minutes.
Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Councilor Arroyo. Council Flynn, you want to just remain on recess until we have full audio? But I appreciate Council Mejia's response, and I have a follow-up.
We're all set. Thank you, Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Councilor Royal, for bringing that to our attention. We appreciate it. The chair recognizes Councilor Flaherty for a response.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to Council Mejia. Joe, do we have any idea so it's to fund an executive director, is that also $50,000 similar to the other one, or do we have a dollar amount for how much we're going to pay the executive director?
The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia in response to a brief question to Councilor Flaherty.
And from my screen, Council President, it seems that Council Mejia looks like it's connecting to audio, so she might be having some technical difficulties from my vantage point.
Yeah,
I'm having issues with my. So I don't know if you can hear me, but this is up to the discretion of the administration, Councilor Flaherty.
Very good. So that's something we're going to have a hearing about, or is that something we're trying to suspend and pass? I think we need to get some more information in terms of who what the executive director position consists of, how much we're going to pay them, et cetera. Those are important financial responsibilities as councilors have fiduciary responsibility to the resident and the taxpayers. I'm just not comfortable suspending and passing or shaking substitute language without any more specifics. And again, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the maker for responding.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Let me go back. Councilor Mejia made a motion to reconsider. It is properly before us now, as we discussed. Does anybody object to this? If anyone objects to this, we will refer this matter to government ops.
So I just want to, excuse me, Mr. President, I don't think we've ever decided how much an executive director makes. And when have we done this? We've never scrutinized salaries. So I just want to push for a motion as is presented and allow my colleagues to vote as I requested earlier, and let's see what happens. And we could take it from there. President Flynn, that's what I am advocating on behalf of.
And
Mr. President,
Arroyo.
I need a point of clarification here. I'm a little confused.
Mr. Clerk, can you give us further clearance? I understand that a motion is properly before us.
Yes.
It was second, and if anyone is not in agreement, it would get referred to government ops.
Well, there's a motion.
In order to suspend the rules, we need unanimous consent.
Well, there is a motion in play offered by Councilor Mejia, motion to reconsider. It was seconded by Councilor Arroyo, so it's properly before the body. And it was a motion to reconsider docket 0240. So the next step, we had discussion, then it would be to vote on the motion to reconsider.
But Mr. Clerk, can we just clarify, if the motion to reconsider, does it then trigger another vote to suspend and pass, which I think, as Councilor Flynn is alluding to, has to be unanimous? It's a multi-step vote, or is the motion to reconsider also the S&P?
That would be another vote to pass it today, yes. I don't think it has to be unanimous. As long as a majority votes for it, it would pass.
But Mr. Clerk, it's a newly filed docket, so wouldn't it require suspension and passage to pass in its first meeting and therefore unanimous consent?
I believe that's correct.
If there's no objection, right, you're right, Councilor, yes.
Right.
Because it's a new docket, yep.
Yeah, I would just, and Councilor Mejia, I'm sorry to disagree on this. I just think that I don't think that the difference of a week, for instance, will affect us being able to get the commission up and running. And I think that the practice of the council voting suspension and passage on something that has financial implications without like any prior conversation about it, where we sort of end up doing the hearing in the meeting like this, it's not a great precedent for the council. So I think in that context, like I would object procedurally to this.
So I just thank you, Councillor Bach, for that feedback. I just want to note for the record that I have been on this council for the last 2 years, and I have seen how we have finagled and moved things around in order of convenience on certain things. But I do appreciate this feedback. I do appreciate the point of order, and I do appreciate your advocacy in regards to this. But I will be making notes of how we do business and take the feedback as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Thank you, Councilor Bach, for the follow-up.
And I see Councilor Arroyo has his hand up.
The chair recognizes Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Mr. President. And it does seem very obvious that someone will object to the suspend and pass, which will probably send this to committee. But what I will just say is that we've done this with grants. We've done this with grants that number into the millions of dollars in the past. And so there's obviously precedent for this, but obviously this is a body. This body has rules, and we will follow those rules as they're presented, I think, as a body. And so I appreciate everybody's concern. I appreciate the way that this has gone, but I will just say it's not foreign to us to make decisions that have financial implications for the body or for the city with a suspend and pass. In fact, we've done it often.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo, for that follow-up as well. Mr. Clerk, so we have obviously the motion is properly before us.
Yes.
It was second. The next step would be, is there anyone that objects, I believe, to this?
I think we take a vote, don't we?
We have to take a vote on the motion. So
Mr. Clerk, could we take a roll call vote, please?
yes. So docket number 0240, a motion by Councilor Mejia to reconsider the docket, and it was seconded by Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
No.
Councilor Baker, no. Councilor Bach.
No.
Councilor Bach, no. Councilor Braden.
No.
Councilor Braden, no. Councilor Edwards.
Present.
Present. Councilor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Councilor Flaherty.
No.
Councilor Flynn.
Yes.
Councilor Lara.
Yes.
Councilor Louisiane.
Yes.
Councilor Mejia. Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy. Councilor Murphy.
No.
And Councilor Worrell.
Yes.
Yes.
Look at Julia happy.
So Councilor Flynn, 7 votes in the affirmative, 5 votes in the negative, and 1 present. The motion to reconsider passes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So the matter is properly before us, and now Council Mejia is asking for suspension of the rules and to pass. And I believe we would need unanimous consent.
Yes.
At this time, are there any objections?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the chair notes Councilor Bach,
Flaherty.
Councilor Flaherty. The matter now will be referred to the Committee on Government Operations. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Welcome.
Mr. Clerk, will you please read docket 0245, please?
Docket number 0245, Councilor Murphy offered the following. Order for a hearing to address the youth mental health crisis in our city.
The chair recognizes Councilor Murphy. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, Clerk Juntis, my colleagues, and the residents of Boston. I am the first councilor to ever deliver her maiden speech over Zoom. I was preparing to stand in the chamber, invite family, and address the city in the traditional way, but we have all had to adjust and be patient with the challenges of COVID-19 and what that has caused. So I'm calling for an order for a hearing to address the youth mental health crisis in our city. I've been a mother for the past 32 years, a teacher in the Boston Public Schools for over 20 years, and I'm very familiar with the struggles many families have to deal with in our city. Educational challenges, economic setbacks, substance use disorder, and recovery and trauma. I knew early on in my educational career that I would be doing a whole lot more than just teaching kids how to read and write. I struggled making sure I was addressing the mental health of my students and finding the right balance between academics and their social and emotional needs. The courses I took in college to be a teacher did not prepare me for this. Every year that passed, the district was adding more literacy blocks and math lessons for our 4 and 5-year-olds. So I didn't have time in my packed schedule to add mindfulness or play. Even though I knew it was necessary, I would get pressure from administration when I wanted to add just 15 minutes of outdoor recess for my K-1 students. I could see that I would not be able to set my students up for academic success and sustain their social and emotional needs if I didn't do something differently. I signed up for a 200-hour yoga instructor in trauma-informed social, emotional, and wellness training, so I could effectively incorporate these practices into all of my lessons. My students needed and deserved this. The mental health challenges that our children were facing before the pandemic were a great concern. The COVID-19 pandemic has only intensified these concerns, and as the pandemic continues to take an alarming toll on our children's mental health, the President of the United States has declared COVID-19 a national disaster. The American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Children's Hospital Association have all declared a national emergency for children and adolescents' mental health. And on December 7th, 2021, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a new advisory to highlight the urgent need to address the youth mental health crisis we are facing. The pandemic has been an unprecedented impact on the mental health of our youth. We know that this pandemic began as an infectious disease, but it has evolved into a mental health crisis. And our youth continue to face physical isolation, fear, stress at school and home, grief, and ongoing uncertainty. Many medical professionals refer to this as a pandemic within the pandemic. Our families, caregivers, school community centers, faith-based organizations, health centers, hospitals are all caring for young people with soaring rates of depression, anxiety, trauma, loneliness, and suicide attempts. And this will have lasting impacts on them, their families, and our communities. Furthermore, research has shown that the Black and Latinx children have seen more COVID-19 related infection and death in their communities. Their families have suffered disproportionate economic setbacks as well. And we know that Hispanic women and immigrants are among the groups most affected by job loss during this pandemic. They are at higher risk for food insecurity and unstable housing. In between March and October 2020, the percentage of emergency room visits for children with mental health needs rose by 24% in our children as young as 5 to 11 and 31% for children ages 12 to 17. We're also seeing more than 50% increase in suspected suicide attempts for our young girls ages 12 to 17 in that same period. We can't ignore this any longer. And we need to address this mental health crisis by not only prioritizing supports in Boston Public Schools, which I know in the past this council has made sure to do that, but in community centers, faith-based organizations, after-school programs, athletic programs, senior centers, and healthcare centers. This crisis will need intergenerational support in all neighborhoods across the city. We are a rich city full of opportunity and resources, and as the chair of public health, I will work hard to ensure that we have safe parks and open spaces in all neighborhoods for children and families to enjoy the outdoors. Kids have opportunity to play sports, perform in theater, learn how to play chess, sew, paint, play musical instruments with their peers, whatever it is they want to seek out. And that we all have a deep understanding of the importance that these activities have on the social and emotional wellness of our children and young adults. Yes, we do need to invest in more social workers and psychologists and properly train our staff at schools with trauma-informed SEL. But as importantly, I believe that we need to invest more in our community center programming, after-school opportunities, and in the nonprofits that have been doing this important work for decades, like the Base in Roxbury, Riverside Theater Works in Hyde Park, Dot Art in Dorchester, Boston City Singers in JP, and the Ollie in South Boston, just to name a few. I will hold a hearing to discuss progress towards ensuring that every child has access to high quality, affordable, and culturally competent mental health care. That we put supports in place for the mental health of our children in schools, but also in our communities, our child care settings. We need to sustain funding for effective school-based mental health care and address the economic and social barriers that contribute to the lack of mental health for our young people. We need to discuss increased funding for evidence-based mental health screening, diagnosis, treatment, particularly for our underprivileged populations, and strengthen suicide prevention programs in schools, primary care, and community response teams. All of this is going to be necessary. Before I ended up on the campaign trail and here in City Hall, I was born at St. Margaret's Hospital in Jones Hill. 125 years after my Murphy family first arrived here in America for a better life. In 1845, Thomas C. Murphy was born on East Broadway to Annie and Richard Murphy. And generations later, most of my extended family still call Boston home. Born and raised in Dorchester to a teacher and a laborer, I come from hardy Dorchester stock with strong traditions of activism. My grandfather, Richard Murphy, organized the various neighborhood groups under one umbrella, the Dorchester United Neighborhood Association, DUNA, to turn the former landfill into a park and community buildings. Today, we know that as the Richard J. Murphy School, along with the adjacent sports field and playgrounds. My Auntie Kay and Mom started the first teen center in the city of Boston right there in the gym. And Papa Murphy led the funding of the Redberry Credit Union, which made very small, very low interest loans, microloans to working people in the city. I was taught at an early age that you need to leave every place you go a little bit better than when you first arrived. I thought every kid who went to the beach or park with their families had to pick up 10 pieces of trash, not your own, and prove it to the adults before you could drive home. I thought every family set the table at Thanksgiving with an extra place settings just in case someone brought a friend who didn't have a family to visit that day. This often meant someone was sitting on pillows in the living room or standing at the kitchen counter or taking smaller servings to make sure everyone had enough to eat and felt welcome. But we wouldn't have had it any other way. This upbringing led me to being a lifelong advocate for our neighborhoods and working to improve our city in ways large and small. From training for my first Boston Marathon at 45 and running 3 years in a row to fight the stigma associated with mental health and substance use disorder, and raising over $60,000 for the Gavin Foundation and other organizations that work in the recovery field, to things as little as coaching soccer with my daughter and being board committee member to Ward 16. I am an educator who spent more than 20 years in the Boston Public Schools as a classroom teacher and special education coordinator, providing a strong foundation for hundreds and hundreds of children in supporting their families and caregivers, always advocating for those who felt their voices were not being heard or didn't know what to ask for. Educational challenges, navigating our public school system, economic setbacks, substance use disorder and recovery, food insecurities, language access, paying the rising cost of rent or mortgage, caring for our aging parents, and recovering our lives and livelihoods in the wake of this COVID-19 pandemic were all issues I dealt with while raising my own family as a single mom, teaching my students, and advocating for my families in the neighborhood. I always taught with love, and now as a member of the Boston City Council, I will lead with love. I believe we need the kind of leadership that is steady, competent, and compassionate, someone who listens, learns, and cares. That's the type of leadership I have brought with me to City Hall. I will continue to show up, connect with people, form new relationships, listen and learn what are the needs in all of our neighborhoods across the city. If it's in Orchard Gardens who shouldn't have to worry about their students having a safe walk to school or a safe playground to go out at recess. If it's the relationships between the restaurant owners and residents in the North End around outdoor dining and parking, supporting the strong Vietnamese community in Fields Corner with the Little Saigon Cultural District that honors their immigrant experiences and supports advancements in the local economy, protecting the Stony Brook Reservation in Hyde Park and advocating for a community health center in their community, working with the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corp on affordable rental and home ownership opportunities, or working with business owners in Nubian Square by connecting them to resources our Office of Economic Development has to offer so they can stay open and thrive. Or if it's collaborating with Charlestown families over what to do with the Edwards Middle School that has closed and the future of Charlestown High, supporting the Orthodox Jewish community in Ulster Brighton, the traffic issues in East Boston, safety concerns in Chinatown, the redesign of Blue Hill Lab in Mattapan, and the development that goes on in Mission Hill. And the issues of education, public health, affordable housing, families and seniors being displaced from their neighborhoods, public safety, and climate change that all of our residents are facing every day in every neighborhood. As your at-large city councilor, I will continue to show up and work closely with the district councilors, city departments, community leaders, faith-based organizations, residents, and business owners in every neighborhood to ensure that our rich city is working for everyone. We are all neighbors, all of us, and that's how we build neighborhoods together. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. That was her maiden speech. Let's stand and give her a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Patience.
Now I can speak.
It's well done, Councilor Murphy. Welcome to the City Council, and outstanding job, outstanding speech. Is anyone else looking to speak on this matter? I do see Councilor Flaherty's hand. Councilor Flaherty.
Please add my name, Mr.
Anyone else like to speak on this? The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, President Flynn, and also big shout out and congratulations to Councilor Murphy on filing your first hearing order and doing something that is so deeply close to your heart. That is how this work moves forward, is if we do it with passion. So incredibly grateful for your leadership in the space. I also would just like to add my name, and as well as just note that a lot of the work that we've been doing in the education space around mental health and wellness, really looking for opportunities to continue to partner with you on this front. We created a mental health ambassadors program for young people, and we have over 20 young people across the city of Boston in different public schools as mental health pioneers. So whatever we can do to help support you in this effort, we're here for all of it, and looking forward to your partnership in this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. The chair recognizes Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just sign my name on. Mr. President, thank you. And Aaron, nice job. You're making your generations before you proud.
Thank you, Council Baker. The chair recognizes Councilor Bach. Councilor Bach, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I also want to thank Councilor Murphy for her speech and welcome her to the council floor. Please add my name. And just strongly would agree. I think there's been a lot of data and reporting just even coming out in the last few days about what a crisis this is for our young people. And I really appreciate how, I appreciate her bringing her depth of experience as a teacher and as a parent to this. And also appreciate both from Councilor Murphy and Councilor Mejia, who was just speaking the way that the at-large counselors often can support us district counselors by focusing on these like cross-cutting issues that are affecting, people in every neighborhood of the city of Boston. And I just think it's definitely happening at schools in each of our districts, and just really appreciate your leadership on this. So congratulations, Councilor Murphy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bach. Any other council like to speak? Would any other council like to add their name? Please raise your hand. Please add Councilor Braden. Please add the chair. Please add Councilor Bach, Councilor Baker, Councilor Mejia, Councilor Fernandez Anderson, Councilor Lejeune, Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Royal, Councilor Worrell, Councilor Lara. I don't see any other councilors' hands up at this time. We added Councilor Bach already. Docket 0245 will be referred to the Committee on Public Health, Homelessness, and Recovery. Mr. Clerk, please read docket number 0246, please.
Docket number 0246, Councilor Murphy offered the following: order for a hearing to address the changes to the memorandum of agreement that the vaccine mandated created.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The chair recognizes Councilor Murphy. Councilor Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I am calling on an order for a hearing to address changes to the memorandum of agreement, the MOA, that the vaccine mandate has created. Whereas I understand that the COVID-19 vaccine will not prevent transmission, but it has effectively shown to prevent severe disease for those who contract COVID-19. And I encourage all Boston residents and employees be vaccinated against COVID-19. And as a former Boston public school teacher and union member for over 24 years, and daughter of proud union family, I know how important strong unions are to the quality of life for all Bostonians. Testing, contact tracing, and social distancing have been effective tools to contain the spread of COVID-19. Vaccination and testing is crucial to our safety. The mandate for COVID-19 vaccination is requiring a condition of work that is not in the contract. All workers, I believe, have the right to a safe workplace and also have a right to have their voices heard through collective bargaining. Any changes that are made to the MOA should have the opportunity to be collectively bargained before any changes to work conditions go into place. I am asking that the appropriate committee members, that we have representatives from the mayor's office, executive director from Public Health Commission, and representatives from all of the municipal bargaining units and from the restaurant industry come to the hearing to testify. I've scheduled a hearing so all parties impacted can share their concerns to the council, and we as a council can then make decisions supporting going forward.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Is anyone else looking to speak on this matter? Please raise your hand. Councilor Baker, would you like to speak?
Yes, there are a couple hands raised before me. I don't know if they were looking to sign on but I'll just go first.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Councilor Murphy, for bringing this to the forefront here. The Be Together initiative, I see two major issues with the Be Together initiative. I mean, we're working off a 2-year-old emergency declaration that was in extension in April 2020. I would argue that the city of Boston and the situation with COVID has drastically changed. We've gone through numerous variants. There's been no discussion with the Public Health Board. If you look in the minutes of the Public Health Board, there was no discussion there about this, these mandates, the vax mandate, and also the passport mandate is part of the Be Together initiative. Multiple cities and towns that were at the press conference that showed enthusiastic support of this when they went back to their cities and towns and actually brought it into a process, meaning either Board of Selectmen, City Council, or health boards. Numerous were voted down. Somerville's Board of Health, Brian Green, actually said that would not have any effect on decreasing transmission. That's from Somerville. And this, so process transparency, I have a major issue with here. This seems like these major changes are being implemented not only to our workforce, but also to our small businesses that quite frankly, I don't think the city should be in there and telling them what they should do. And the second major problem is with collective bargaining agreements. That we as Democrats and we as pro-labor, and we talked about working and workforce and putting people to jobs. Part of the tenet of being in Boston and having a workforce that is the best in the country, and that's all of our workforce, best in the country. For them to have agreements and to have this administration come in and basically roll that agreement up and throw it in the trash and totally disrespect it, disregard it. I think it's well, I know it's a major, major problem. Our whole, civilization is based on the contract. Yes, I'm signing this and letting you know that I'm going to do that. Why are we allowing this administration to just take those contracts and throw them out without discussions? To never come in front of us. Nobody has asked our opinion on where we are on this thing, and not to bring up a sore subject, but last week, the people that came into our chamber, they were looking for where is the transparency? Where was the vote taken on this? Was this just unilaterally just decided? So those are some of my real concerns. And Erin, thank you very much for this. And I just want to make one other point. There's a large union that's noticeably absent in this discussion here. It's a teachers union. From what I understand, they have the most people out of compliance is the teachers union. So I'm wondering what's going on with the teachers union here. Is there a side deal going on? Are there commitments being made to the teachers union to kind of pit unions against each other? Again, no transparency, no conversations. When we had a previous mayor and we were in a real state of emergency, I don't know if people remember, but we met for 6 or 7 months every single day at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. We had the entire mayor's team that could answer our questions available to us every single day when we were in an emergency. Now we're still calling it an emergency, and this administration is making decisions without even asking us our opinion. So it concerns me now, and it really concerns me moving into the future. We can't just throw away collective bargaining like this. It's a bad, bad road to go on. And sign my name on it. Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to speak here today.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Any other council like to speak on this matter? The chair recognizes Councilor Arroyo. Councilor Arroyo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I come from a union family myself. My mother and sister are currently at BTU union employees. My brother was a political director for 32BJ. I work at the Committee for Public Council Services, where I actually tried to union organize for SEIU 888. So I'm a big believer in unions and what they deliver for us and for our families. But I also fully understand that COVID-19 is the leading cause of death in this country right now for first responders. It is a terrible disease, and taking the vaccine, one, prevents, and in most cases, a severe form of the illness. But on top of that, it actually, because this is an airborne illness, because this is something that you can spread, the vaccine actually reduces the viral load. So folks who are vaccinated actually have less of the disease to share, which creates weaker infections and so in COVID positives. And so there's a lot of very good reasons to take the COVID vaccination, and I fully understand and support why our administration has decided to push forward with this. I will say that collective bargaining is obviously incredibly important. It's something that is the whole basis for why we have unions. But I also think that there are very specific safety issues here for both members and for the public in which these unions interface, and that these kinds of decisions are not made. I think we're still in an emergency. I understand some people may say we're not, but I think we're still in the midst of a pandemic as we speak right now, in which our ICUs are always sort of teetering as to whether or not they're going to go into a place where all of a sudden we're overfilled, and then we're having issues with other folks. I know right now we're on a downswing, we were just on an upswing, but as variants continue to emerge and as we continue to see the growth of this, we're going to continue to see these surges if we don't do the things we have to do to minimize and maximize. And I will just say that what needs to happen isn't a testing or a vaccination mandate, an either or, but rather a testing and a vaccine policy in place together. Obviously, if you are vaccinated, you can carry the disease, you can catch COVID-19, and we should constantly be testing folks whether they're vaccinated or not to ensure that we're not doing the spread. And so I think we should probably go further than we have. We should have a mandate and for both testing and vaccination. But I understand that folks on this council may disagree and folks in the city may disagree, but that's simply what I believe to actually rein this in. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council Arroyo. Any other city councilors like to speak on this matter? Please raise your hand. The chair recognizes Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flaherty, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, and just like to commend the lead sponsor for her leadership here. First, as a former card-carrying Teamster, I've always been guided by the union consciousness and also believe that every worker is entitled to the fundamental rights of representation and collective bargaining. Secondly, and importantly, I want to stress that the vaccination against COVID-19 is critical in our cities, in our country's response to the ongoing public health crisis. It has proven to reduce severe illness and death caused by COVID-19. In large part, our city's workforce is vaccinated and is in compliance with the mandate. I strongly encourage residents and city employees to get vaccinated and or to consult with their doctor if they have any questions or concerns. But I also want to emphasize, and the previous speaker touched on it briefly, that the testing is also a critical part of our city's response to the ongoing health crisis. That has to be at the forefront here because folks that have been vaccinated and boosted are still contracting COVID. Yet if we're not testing them, then we're not putting them in quarantine. We're not separating them from coworkers and or their own family members. And so we'll continue to sort of chase our tail on this one. So I firmly believe that testing has to remain a critical component, along with social distancing and masking up where appropriate, et cetera. So that said, I will continue to ask the administration and the municipal unions to come to the table and to bargain in good faith to reach an agreement. Now more than ever, I think we have a collective responsibility to act in the public's interest, to maintain our commitments to organized labor and to the rights of working families. We need to be, as a council, we need to be in the business of helping neighborhoods and helping businesses and helping our residents bounce back from COVID. So I'm not sure we should be in the business of sort of targeting or pitting folks against each other and or going after folks and trying to take away their livelihood. I think that we need to sort of find some common ground here, indicate that obviously the vaccine has had results and has eliminated, at least lengthy hospitalizations, but also that testing option has to be on the table. It has to be an option for city employees. And so with that, Mr. President, please sign my name.
Please include Council Flaherty's name. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Before we go to hands, I would like to offer brief comments. I remember I actually called the first public meeting in the country on COVID-19 at Josiah Quincy School two years ago, when little was known about COVID-19. And during the last 2 years, it's been extremely difficult period of time for our city. I would echo what Councilor Flaherty has said. I'm also a proud member, a union member. I was a member of NAIDS, which is the National Association of Government Employees, as a probation officer at Suffolk Superior Court. So I also know the important role unions and organized labor play in our city and in our country, building a pathway to the middle class. So the role of organized labor in Boston and across our country is critical. Just want to highlight the comments of Councilor Flaherty. We do need to continue testing, and we need to continue making sure that people that don't have the proper mask, they don't have the access to mental health counseling, they don't have access to the vaccination, that we must do a better job providing those services to our residents. During this difficult period of time, it's also important for us to come together as a city, as a country, and there's so much division that we see happening in society today. But what this city does best is we work well together, especially during difficult times. So let's continue working together. Let's continue treating each other with respect, but it's important that we work together during this very critical time in our city. And please add my name as well, Mr. Clerk. Please, anyone else like to add their name? Please raise your hand. I mentioned Councilor Flaherty, Councilor Baker.
Can I say one more thing, President Flynn?
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Murphy.
I know also there's a concern that it's been postponed a few times, but that mandate had a date where people would be terminated. And as of Monday, I know 372 BTU members were still not vaccinated. So when like that, I think this hearing is going to also be important to give us information, because we are going to have city employees, neighbors, people in our districts and our neighborhoods that are going to lose their job before having the opportunity to speak to us as a council. And like Councilor Arroyo said, and Flaherty, and I wrote it right in my order, I am a strong supporter of the vaccine and making sure that we were getting sites up and running in all neighborhoods across this city. The testing is key to continue. Many people I know who got the virus got it in the last few months after being triple vaxxed. Many were already boosted, so we know that it's not stopping the spread. So the testing is necessary, but we also need to have these unions sit down with us and talk about how we can collectively bargain so that everyone is safe moving forward, and that people aren't losing their jobs.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Docket 0246 will be referred to the Committee on City Services, Innovation, Technology. Mr. Clerk, please read. Mr. Clerk, please read 02.
I think, can I make a point there? I think that should go to Erin's committee, just maybe, I mean, it's a public health discussion.
Mr. President, if I could just make a point, it does seem that.
Yeah, hold on, please.
Or at least a joint.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Baker. The reason this is going to the Committee on City Services, Innovation and Technology, it has to do specifically with the memorandum, and it's a kind of a labor workforce union related issue, contract issue with city employees. So that's where a lot of the discussion will take place at that committee, and they have jurisdiction for that issue, as compared to the previous docket where it was specifically on public health. That went into the Public Health Committee, but this one was more of a labor and union focus, so it would go into city services, innovation technology.
I think we could do a co-hearing there at least, because my questioning is going to be about discussions around where was the Board of Health during all this? How did we come up with these decisions to get to the point to get? So my questions are all before the MOU. I think it's a public health, and I'll leave it at that. I think it should be in at least a code committee with public health there.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Baker.
Chair. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to make a decision, but before I do, did someone else want to weigh in? Councilor Murphy, the chair recognizes you.
Thank you. Yesterday, I know things have changed, I guess, but it was going to be in my committee, and we have set up a hearing for Tuesday, inviting people to come to this hearing to discuss. So please advise on going forward if it goes into a different committee.
Yes, this will be referred to the Committee on City Services, Innovation, and Technology.
It won't go into both?
I have my hand up too, Councilor President Flynn.
Yes, I'm gonna go on to docket 0247. But go ahead, Councilor Mejia. Can you ask your question briefly?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge how amazing you're just facilitating today's meeting. So thank you for your patience with all of us today. And I also just kind of want to make note, I am the chair of Workforce Development and Labor, as if there is any concern in terms to which committee this is going to be put under. I do know that I oversee both workforce development and labor issues. So if this is something that we can't find a home for, I'll be more than happy to take it under my wing and shepherd it through the process. So just let me know how I can be helpful.
Thank you for those comments, Councilor Mejia. Appreciate it. Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0247, please.
Docket number 0247, Councilor Mejia offered the following. Order regarding a text amendment to the Boston zoning code to establish formula retail uses.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The chair recognizes Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia, you have the floor at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Politicians love to use the phrase, small businesses are the backbone of our economy. It's a phrase we hear so often, it's literally lost its meaning. Those words need to be backed up by action, and this is what we're doing here today. As many of you know, Total Wine and Spirits, a major commercial retailer, was recently awarded a liquor license to operate one of their major chain locations right here in Boston, despite opposition from local elected officials, community groups, abutters, and neighboring small businesses. How is it that something so universally unwanted can pass through without question, especially when we know how deep the inequities are in our liquor license system to begin with? This is why we're filing a text amendment to establish a retail formula use in our zoning code. The purpose of this text amendment is to define what major commercial chains look like. It is also to ban them from being allowed to set up shop in residential zones, and would make their development commercial zones conditional. This is a text amendment which was originally filed by my sister in service, Councilor Edwards, Janey, and then Councilor Wu. It was ultimately vetoed by the Walsh administration, but given that one of the original co-sponsors is now across the hall in the Eagle Room, I think our chances of passing this have improved. We look forward to this conversation and doing more to stand up for small businesses in our city.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? I see Councilor Edwards. The chair recognizes Councilor Edwards.
Thank you very much. And it's true. At the time, we were dealing with Starbucks in the North End, specifically focusing on the concerns of big box stores being able to move faster than, and locate in small, in our neighborhoods, and therefore hurt our small business owners. I want to be very clear that there was no passage of this ordinance. There was no veto by Walsh. The issue was legal and case law that demonstrated that zoning codes actually cannot favor small businesses over big box stores. So we tried the zoning amendment, but we were met with case law. And I can send that case law to the drafter of this ordinance. So what we will need is either a favorable case decision coming out of land court demonstrating that we can do this in our zoning code, or we will need to draft this in such a way that it helps small businesses, but doesn't look like we are unfortunately favoring them over big box stores. And that's, I just want to add that historical context. We were met with legal opposition. There was case law. So.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? The chair recognizes Councilor Bach.
Thanks so much, President Flynn. And I just want to say, please do add my name. And I'm grateful to Councilor Mejia for bringing this forward. I agree with Councilor Edwards that we've got some legal challenges there, but I very much agree that, trying to figure out some way to solve for this that we're not prevented by is important, because we hear it all the time on our local main streets about the need to really, keep these giant chains out and help our local businesses thrive, as Councilor Mejia said. And I think it's really important to underscore the fact that so many small businesses have gone under in the pandemic, and that it's sort of tilted the playing field even more towards folks with deep capital holdings, and those are the chains. And so it's an issue that I know that Councilor Mejia and I both feel strongly about, and definitely thinking through ways to block formula retail is something that's come up in my district. Acknowledging those legal hurdles that the council has encountered before. Definitely, I look forward to trying to think through what we could do on this, because none of us want a Boston where we blink in 10 years and more of our main streets have been taken over by chains to the detriment of our local owners. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Please add my name.
Please add Councilor Bach's name. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor Braden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Councillor Mejia for proposing this zoning amendment. I believe our city needs to conduct a thorough review of our outdated zoning code. In particular, Alston Brighton has never had a comprehensive master plan, and we're pushing for a community needs assessment to guide zoning reform. Outdated zoning has resulted in a case-by-case approvals of commercial businesses in areas zoned for residential use. And I'm particularly interested in the proposed amendment's impact on food access in neighbourhoods experiencing food apartheid, formerly referred to as food deserts. While we would like to prioritise non-chain grocery establishments in some cases, chain grocery stores may be the only option able to afford increasing commercial rents and in neighbourhoods deprived of access to grocery stores. It is a balancing act between supporting the sustainability of our small, culturally diverse food retailers and recognising areas of critical need where larger retailers might be able to fill food access gaps. Further, as we anticipate increased development and population growth, we have to take into consideration whether the city is adequately planning for all essential services that people need. I'm interested in further exploring this proposal's impact on current uses and how best to classify grocery stores and other such food retailers under the city's zoning code, and hearing input from city agencies like the Office of Food Access. I thank you. I really welcome the opportunity to dive deeper into this issue, and I look forward to hearing. I look forward to the hearing on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. Would any other council like to speak on this matter and/or add their name? Please add Councilor Worrell. Please add Councilor Fernandez Anderson. Please add the chair.
I see Councillor Louisian, and I also see Councillor Arroyo, just making sure you see those.
Yeah, thank you. Please add Councilor Arroyo. Please add Councilor Lujan.
Councilor Brayton.
Council Braden. Thank you. Docket 020247 will be referred to the Committee on Planning, Development, Transportation. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0248, please.
Docket number 0248, Councilor Flynn offered the following. Order for a special preliminary municipal election for District 1 City Councilor on April 5th, 2022, and special municipal election on May 3rd, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, I'm going to step aside as the president and allow Councilor Arroyo to speak during this docket.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Clerk, would you please read docket 0248 into the record?
I already did it.
Oh, you already did it. Sorry, I
Yes.
didn't hear it.
That's okay.
Then in that case, the chair recognizes Councilor Flynn. Councilor Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. As you know, Councilor Edwards will be resigning for a city council seat on April 30th. So we need to have a special election to fill the seat for District 1. I'm filing this order today so that we can formally call for a special preliminary election and special municipal election for District 1, which will be on April 5th and May 3rd. I'm going to ask for suspension of the rules and passage of this order so that we can start this process. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. Would anyone else like to speak on the matter? Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, let me congratulate our good colleague Lydia for making it to the Senate. Good job. I'm just curious, in moving forward as a district council, this is something that always kind of weighs on us. You don't want to leave your district in a lurch looking for representation. Is this a pathway forward, or is this just something available at going from elected to elected? If someone were to go into like a bureaucratic job or to a private sector job, would we be able to put out our resignation like the same way this happened here? Or is this based on just going elected to elected? Can anybody answer that question?
The chair recognizes Councilor Lydia Edwards.
Yes, it absolutely is, Councilor Baker. It's a form of resignation that has been set by precedent and confirmed by the Supreme Judicial Court. And the case that set this was actually a senator who left for the private sector. And so and so the case law made very clear, and that's why I use the language irrevocably resign. That language is essentially saying you can resign effective this date, and this body or anybody in the Commonwealth, if they're going to be setting a special election, can basically act in advance of that resignation, saying we're going to go ahead and move this along. It is, according to that case and my reasoning, it's the most democratic option for us to allow for the democratic process to begin with the election to start. But I leave before the election. The only requirement is I must leave before the election.
Thank you. And one more question through the chair to Lydia. Who was that senator that left? Do you recall? Was it Boston?
It was not a Boston senator. It was, I can get you the case law. It was, I can actually look it up right now while Councilor Bach is, while she's asking her question, but I can get it to you.
Okay, so, and just to be clear, this is a model we can use in the future.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Baker. Thank you, Councilor Baker. And I noticed Councilor Bach has her hand raised. Councilor Bach, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Councilor Arroyo. I just wanted to second the idea that this is a precedent going forward, and I think a good one. In fact, when you read the case, and I think it's Weiler, Robert Weiler, that's at least the, it's a case from 2004. But anyways, I'm sure Councilor Edwards will provide it. Basically, like one of the rationales here was in that case was actually that you get more democratic representation this way because it allows us to call the election as the president is proposing for the same time as we would if Councilor Edwards had resigned, like effective now. But in that situation, her district would be utterly unrepresented for the 3 months. And so I think it's definitely in the interest of the people who voted for their elected representative to have someone representing their district for as long as possible. It's also obviously in this body's interest to have an odd number and to have a vote from every district where possible. And so I think this is one of those things that is not actually just, convenient for the elected official in question, but actually gets us closer to having full democratic representation for the maximum amount of time. So I just wanted to say that I'm strongly in support of it for that reason. And I know that that was part of the rationale that the SJC said when they said that this was appropriate. They said, yeah, actually people are getting more representation if you do it this way. And then the one other just note I wanted to enter, and Mr. Clark, I don't know exactly how this works because it's sort of a strange case, but even though I know Councillor Flynn said that he was requesting suspension and passage on this, I know that I think councillors should just be aware that in the charter, it actually says that the council shall order an election a week after the notice was read. So this is kind of a funny thing where I actually think we'd be in violation of the charter if we pushed this by a week, as opposed to the sort of norm of, suspension and passage being exceptional. So I just wanted to flag for folks that that's the language in the charter under 15A, section 15A. Thanks so much.
Do we have any further discussion or anyone who would like to speak on this? Thank you. Seeing no hands, would anyone like to add their name? Mr. Clerk, please add Councillor Edwards, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Braden, Councillor Bach, Councillor Louis Jen, Councillor Flaherty, Councillor Worrell, Councillor Tanya Fernandez-Anderson, and all the boxes moving. Councillor Mejia, and
Baker.
And Councillor Baker. There we go. All the boxes move when people hit the hands. And then please add my name as well, and Councillor Lara as well. I believe I got everybody. If I did not say your name and you had your hand raised, please speak. And so with that, Councillor Flynn has moved for a suspension of the rules and passage of docket number 0248. Mr. Clerk, can we please do a roll call vote?
Roll call vote on docket 0248. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker.
Yes.
Councilor Baker, yes. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Fernandez-Anderson. Councilor Fernandez-Anderson. Will we turn back? Councilor Flaherty.
Yes, Mr. Clerk, and I know that Councilor Anderson was having some connectivity issues earlier in the session, and they may have come back to her, so we want to check with Carrie on that. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Flynn?
Yes.
Councilor Flynn, yes. Councilor Lara?
Yes.
Councilor Lara, yes. Councilor Louisiane?
Yes.
Councilor Louisiane, yes. Councilor Mejia?
Yes.
Councilor Mejia, yes. Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy, yes. Councilor Worrell?
Yes.
Councilor Worrell, yes. And Councilor Fernandez-Anderson?
Yes, and thank you, Councilor Flaherty.
Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, yes. Mr. President, docket 0248 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We're going on to personnel orders. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0249, please.
Docket number 0249, Councilor Flynn for Councilor Mejia.
The chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0249. Mr. Clerk, can you call the roll?
Docket number 0249, Councilor Arroyo.
Yes.
Councilor Arroyo, yes. Councilor Baker. Councilor Bach.
Yes.
Councilor Bach, yes. Councilor Braden.
Yes.
Councilor Braden, yes. Councilor Edwards.
Yes.
Councilor Edwards, yes. Councilor Fernandez-Anderson.
Yes.
Councilor Fernandez-Anderson, yes. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Lara.
Yes.
Counselor Lara, yes. Counselor Louisiana.
Yes.
Counselor Louisiana, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy, yes. Counselor Worrell.
Yes.
Counselor Worrell, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes, sorry about that,
No problem.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Counselor. 0249 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0250, please.
Docket number 0250, Counselor Flynn for Counselor Mejia.
The chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage docket 0250. Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Roll on docket 0250, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Fernandez Anderson, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Lara.
Yes.
Counselor Lara, yes. Counselor Louisiana.
Yes.
Counselor Louisiana, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy, yes. Counselor Worrell.
Yes.
Counselor Worrell, yes. Docket number 0250 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0251.
Docket number 0251, Counselor Flynn for Counselor Mejia.
The chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0251. Mr. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Docket number 0251, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor
Yes,
Counselor
sorry.
Edwards, yes. Counselor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Fernandez Anderson, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Lara.
Yes.
Counselor Lara, yes. Counselor Louisiana.
Yes.
Counselor Louisiana, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy, yes. Counselor Worrell.
Yes.
Counselor Worrell, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0251 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0252, please.
Docket number 0252, Counselor Flynn for Counselor Edwards.
The chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0252. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Docket number 0252, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Fernandez Anderson, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Lara.
Yes.
Counselor Lara, yes. Counselor Louisiana.
Yes.
Counselor Louisiana, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy, yes. Counselor Worrell.
Yes.
Counselor Worrell, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0252 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk, please read docket 0253.
Docket number 0253, Counselor Flynn for Counselor Edwards.
The chair seeks suspension of the rules and passage of docket 0253. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Docket number 0253, Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Fernandez Anderson, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Lara.
Yes.
Counselor Lara, yes. Counselor Louisiana.
Yes.
Counselor Louisiana, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy, yes. Counselor Worrell.
Yes.
Counselor Worrell, yes. Mr. President, docket number 0253 has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Late files. Now, moving on to late files, I am informed by the clerk that there are no late file matters. Green sheets. Anyone wishing to remove a matter from the green sheets may do so at this time. The consent agenda. We are now moving to the consent agenda. I have been informed by the clerk that there are no additions to the consent agenda. The chair moves for adoption of the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Arroyo.
Yes.
Counselor Arroyo, yes. Counselor Baker.
Yes.
Counselor Baker, yes. Counselor Bach.
Yes.
Counselor Bach, yes. Counselor Braden.
Yes.
Counselor Braden, yes. Counselor Edwards.
Yes.
Counselor Edwards, yes. Counselor Fernandez Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Fernandez Anderson, yes. Counselor Flaherty.
Yes.
Counselor Flaherty, yes. Counselor Flynn.
Yes.
Counselor Flynn, yes. Counselor Lara.
Yes.
Counselor Lara, yes. Counselor Louisiana.
Yes.
Counselor Louisiana, yes. Counselor Mejia.
Yes.
Counselor Mejia, yes. Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy, yes. Counselor Worrell.
Yes.
Counselor Worrell, yes. Mr. President, the consent agenda has received a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We're on to announcements. Does anyone have any announcements at this time? Please raise your hand. I do see Councilor Flaherty. The chair recognizes Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Mr. President. And on behalf of all the members of the City Council, I want to let folks know that Michael Goon, and Michael's the gentleman that cleans all of our offices. He keeps our side of City Hall as well as the other parts of City Hall clean. He comes in and does the trash removal, etc. He lost both of his parents a couple of days apart, both Nora and Thomas Goonan. Married for 57 years. Both were born and raised in Ireland, immigrated here to St. Greg's Parish in Dorchester. They've got a great family, both Michael and Patrick, and they obviously missed. But I just want to make sure that we as a council recognized that we adjourn in memory of Michael's mom. He's been such an integral part of what we do here. He's been here actually longer than I have. And so I know that we entrust him coming into the office, and he interacts very well with all of us, as well as central staff, as well as all of our staffs. He's a peach of a guy, and I just want to let him know that we're thinking about him during these very difficult times. So if you happen to see him around City Hall, or he comes in your office, if you could just offer condolences and a kind word, I think will go a long way, given the fact that he lost both his mom and dad literally just a couple of days apart from each other. So they're at peace, but obviously he and his brother Patrick are missing both of their parents right now. So on behalf of the council, just want to adjourn in memory of Nora and Thomas Goonan. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. The chair recognizes Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Council Flaherty, thank you for mentioning Mike's parents. I actually worked with Mike as a custodian in City Hall about 33 years ago. But anyways, thank you, Michael. I wanted to just mention the name of Chelsea Christ. She was the Miss America 2019, Miss Universe 2021. She jumped to her death off a Manhattan building. This is a woman who we would think had everything going for her, beautiful, talented, smart, And they seem to think that some of the driving influences that made her do this was social media. So we're in a business that's driven by social media. So it's just kind of a plea for people to, be conscious of what you're putting out there and be conscious of what the people that are receiving it, what happens to them in their life. So Chelsea Christ, we lost her. I believe she was 28, 29 years old. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Anyone else have any announcements that they'd like to make? I will be brief. I'd like to recognize on behalf of myself and Councilor Flaherty, our neighbor in South Boston, Fran Coughlin, passed away. Many people may have known Fran. He was active in South Boston sports. He was a coach, he was an advisor. He graduated from Holy Cross and he was a football player, but we always had a lot of great respect for Fran and his kids and his family. So on behalf of the council, we want to let the Coughlin family know that we are thinking about them at this time. Memorials. Today, we will adjourn our meeting in memory of the following individuals: Councilor Baker, Paul McDonough, John O'Keefe. Councilor Baker and Councilor Lugin, Chelsea Christ. For Councilor Bach, David Muga. For Councilor Edwards, Anthony Tagliani, Christine Strazula. For Councilors Flaherty, Flynn, and Baker, Patricia Manning, Mary Skinner, Arthur Charlie Brown, Molly Hurley, Patricia McDonald, Mrs. O'Leary, Fran Coughlin. For Councilor Mejia, Anna Mae Dancy. For Councilors Worrell, Lejeune, and the entire City Council, Henry Burton, the father of Valerie Burton. As Councilor Flaherty mentioned, and for the entire City Council, Mr. and Mrs. Goonan, the parents of Mike from our janitorial staff. For the entire City Council, Avram Goldberg, the father of State Treasurer Deb Goldberg. A moment of silence, please. The chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it does so in memory of those mentioned individuals. We are scheduled to meet again virtually via Zoom on Wednesday, February 9th at 12 noon. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Aye. The council is adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and to the central staff. Thank you.
Jocelyn, thank you.